And real quick, I know people, and I've had this opinion at one point, so I can relate to it. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. The whole, the Lions are in a window. You need to capitalize on the window, or else the window is going to close. Which I'll say two things. One, that is a real thing in the NFL. I sympathize. I do get where people are coming from with that. Yes, the windows aren't open forever, but when you look at it from Brad's point of view, and I had to understand this because I wanted Chase Young at the trade deadline last year. I wanted him to go out and get somebody to help them get over the top. And of course, in that 49ers game, they struggled. They couldn't get to Brock Purdy in the second half. Everything fell apart. I get that. But here's what you have to understand from Brad's point of view is, and Coach Walk mentioned this, it's not just about this season. He's trying to build sustainable success. Now, when you draft as good as Brad does, that comes with re-signing players. You have to keep your own. You want to keep a Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson, an Amon-Ra St. Brown, a Jared Goff, like so on and so forth. Taylor Decker's due soon. That's why you couldn't re-sign Jonah Jackson. He had to make a tough decision. I don't blame him. I wouldn't re-sign Jonah either. But when you think there's money, go spend it. That's when you get into a problem where you're losing players. And let's say you spend a lot on free agency. Notice how the team that wins the Super Bowl isn't always the team that wins free agency. You get where I'm going with this.
That's normally how it goes.
I haven't heard the Chiefs once yet.
Let's just relax here and say, oh, Brad didn't make these splashy signings. There's no way they're winning a Super Bowl. That's not how it works, guys. Like, yes, we all agreed they have to do more of their defensive line, but what do you guys think about they didn't get a L'Jarius Sneed. They didn't get a Christian Wilkins, who got paid, by the way. Like, I ain't taking that. I like Christian Wilkins, but no thank you. But where are you guys at with that narrative?
Well, I could start this off. It's just go look at some of these teams that are signing some of these. Like, there are some big teams that are making moves. Like the Raiders, obviously, they're looking to take a step. Like the Panthers, like there's the Titans. Like there's teams that are paying big time players. The Giants just went and got Brian Burns. Like the Lions were never going to do a Brian Burns deal. He just got paid like I don't even know what the deal was. Like what, 140 million or something? I don't know if I have it here. Like 150 million, 5 years, 150 million. You pay that, guess what? Be very, very comfortable to move on from one of your big time players in the near future because there's a cap in this league. So like, it's just, to me, it's just like there are some big names that it's the same thing, the L'Jarius Sneed thing. It's if you wanted to bring him in, you're gonna have to pay a lot of money. You got a 1 year rental on 14 million. I know guys want bigger time players and stars coming into the Lions, but Brad got us to the NFC Championship game doing what he's doing. So I don't think it's like slappy of us or anything, but it's like, hey, let's this is what our GM does. He's very smart and like particular in what he does. And he's just not going to go out there and just to sign guys because of names and things like that. Because like, how much will Christian Wilkins really help the Raiders? Probably a lot on the defensive line, but
that's what Max Crosby in there.
But guess what? Max Crosby, they're going to have to repay Max Crosby now because I saw today he's the second highest paid defensive lineman on their team. And now, all right,
and they don't have a quarterback either.
They don't have a quarterback. And it's just like you start to get into these things. And like, to me, I think the Lions have way more building blocks and pieces than the Raiders do. And they're trying to like find guys like that. And we have guys we're going to have to pay like that. So you just like, it's going to take time. Like Danielle Hunter, I think is still in play. And you might have to pay him like two or 3 year contract, a big deal. But like, if you can get him on a short term, like I think that's like really still in play. So like before people start freaking out and they're like, oh no, like let this thing like play out all the way up until the draft or until all these defensive linemen are off. Because go look at some of these lists. There's so many dudes still left on the board. Like I don't think it's like a rush to who, like I felt like so many different markets and the money just got absolutely blown out of proportion today. Like guard wise and defensive end and defensive interior, like so many dudes got paid and the markets went up so much. I don't even think you want to be involved in that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the difference is with Brad and these other GMs, and not only Brad, but the Les Sneads of the world and the Howie Rosemans, and Howie even does it sometimes too, where there's GMs where it feels like they're dumping money. And with Brad, it's almost like he's investing money where, he's spending it, but he's going to make sure that he gets a return for his asset.
Yes.
Yeah, he's spending he's spending $14.5 million in a third round pick on Carlton Davis this year, or he could have went out and broke the bank for L'Jarius Sneed as far as draft revenue, and he's dumping all the money. He's making the fans happy, but is he really going to get the return for his dollar if he gets hurt, if he has a fall off? Because let's not forget, L'Jarius Sneed, great corner with Steve Spagnuolo, Trent McDuffie, Chris Jones in a great situation. The Lions defensively are not that type of situation. So he's going to make sure that the thing that he has took so much time with drafting Penei Sewell all the way back in 2020, drafting a tackle when you could have got a skill position, he showed you. He's going to make sure he gets the most possible investment and return for the money that he spends. And I think free agency goes right in hand with that. He's never going to be that guy that's first in line day one on free agency and getting that 5-star wide receiver, that 5-star defensive end. And so far, he hasn't done that, and it's worked. So I'm not mad at all.
Yeah, no, and Jeff, you brought up the Lions window, and it is just starting. So for Brad Holmes to go out there and virtually handcuff himself to do or to sign someone is just not how Brad Holmes does it. I mean, he's not gonna sign someone that's gonna tear apart, like Lukas said, his long-term plan of building this team. And when their window's just starting, it doesn't make sense to do it. He's always been smart about how he spends the money and who he spends it on. So I don't see why we're too surprised that he hasn't, made that big of a leap yet. So.
Yeah.
Think about the trade deadline.
Yeah, and that's what I brought up too with it. Like the people, and I was one of those people, Boone. Like I was sitting there going, "Give me Chase Young, give me Chase Young." Which, like, to be fair, they needed a guy like Chase Young. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, okay, if you think about it, you're giving up draft capital for somebody. Yep. Look at the 49ers. Chase Young, he's gone. Like they gave up a 3rd-round pick, who I believe they're going to get that back. But regardless, Brad wants to keep his draft capital, and that 3rd-round pick ended up turning it out into Carlton Davis. Like when you're as good of if you're as good as Brad is at finding talent through the draft, like I don't blame him for not going out and being like, here's a bag, here's a bag, here's a bag. Like you got guys you got to keep, and it just makes sense. Like I'm not saying that no moves need to be made, but that's my argument, to people that are like, throw a bag away on random players. I just don't. Brad literally said to everybody, that's not how I operate. We're not
think about it.
Just spend it.
At the trade deadline, like you said, like they had the conversations with the 49ers about Chase Young. There was rumors that came out. They had a conversation about Danielle Hunter at the trade deadline. Like, so you break all that down, and guess what? Brad looked at it and goes, "Yep, that's not worth it. I'll let another team go out there and spend picks or spend money on that." And I'm like, all the Christian Wilkins. I'm sure he spoke with Christian Wilkins and his agents. I'm sure he spoke with Leonard Floyd and all of these guys. And he said, "All right, what are you guys looking at? What are you guys getting offers from?" You know what? No, we'll let another team break the bank on that. And then, like Lukas said, in a year or two, guess what? You guys will have to go cut him because you can't afford him when you have to pay all these other guys. Like, we'll let you guys deal with that. We're going to build an organic way, in the right way. So I'm just not like, I don't know. I'm just not up over arms on this like some people.
I mean, think about, okay, we'll go through the last 4 teams left. The Lions, the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Ravens. What did the Chiefs do so far? That's groundbreaking. Yes, they have Patrick Mahomes, but again, Brett Veach, great at identifying talent through the draft. You have Pat Mahomes. I get that. Look at the Ravens. They lost some players, didn't they? Yeah. I mean, that's what comes. I mean, they find talent. They can't keep everybody, but it's not like the Ravens were out here trying to acquire everybody. Like we have a good football team. There's a reason why a team like the Eagles goes out and signs a Saquon and goes out and signs a Bryce Huff, because they win home. Like that's what they have to do. They have to get better. They have no choice, but they had to upgrade the run game. Oh, the Lions have the best running back duo in the NFL. Well, they had to upgrade their pass rush. I 100% get that. Lions do too. Are you paying what Bryce Huff wanted? We talked about Bryce Huff, fellas. Like he had
so much money.
He had 1 year last year. He had a good year, but remember Lukas broke it down for us. Like rotational player, there's upside there, but it is risky. The Eagles were willing to take that risk. So again, and I'm not saying that the Lions will never make a move. No team, and I said this, no team has won a Super Bowl just by free agency, by drafting. But that also is a part of it. It's free agency, drafting, free agency, drafting. It's not all free agency. It's not all drafting. I think the Lions have done a pretty good job of kind of doing both. Like, and again, I kind of count free agency as re-signing good football players. Like that's like, because you're not losing them. Like Graham, I know Graham. It's like, Graham Glasgow's back. No, that's a free agency signing. You keep one of the best guards in the NFL. Like that's still significant. That's how I look at it, fellas.
I'm just seeing some comments here. People like saying like the Chiefs re-signed Chris Jones and like the 49ers. And then someone said like most Super Bowl teams will go out and sign big time player. Like the Chiefs, like those are their own players they're re-signing, fellas. Like that's You're re-signing your guys. Amon-Ra in the next couple weeks is going to get a deal. I'm sure Panay will. I'm sure Jared Goff. Like, your guys are going to stay here. That's part of it. Like, all these Super Bowl teams, all of them don't go out there and just break the bank on big. They might trade for someone at the deadline, but they're not breaking the bank sometimes.
Those teams hardly, like the New England Patriots, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Packers back in the day. Those are the ones that, like, they built through the draft. Even the Chiefs, like, they drafted Patrick Mahomes, but they didn't have just some band of young rookies ready for him. They had to go trade for Tyrann Mathieu. They had to go trade for this player. The Lions aren't that type of team where they have got the players that they might need to go trade for in the future in the second, third, and fourth rounds. They already have those players, so they're not in the position as those other teams. The Lions, they did it right, and not a lot of NFL teams do it as far as a rebuild, in my opinion.